Hi there. Dubai is crashing, and it's of course not a big surprise. Every economist or analyst that says that it's a black swan is up. Either they're just ignorant or they're lying, because it has been visible for years that there was something going on in Dubai that really has no basis. It was a speculative hub for all kinds of speculation. My theory is that Dubai was basically a thing thought up by the Arabian countries in order to get some of the wealth that was generated by their oil. What they basically thought was, let's create a place a little bit like Qatar, but a little bit different. That is like a Shangri-La that you have to travel to. That is super luxurious. That everybody can use as a status symbol. If you are an international traveler and you can travel to Dubai, then that's good for you. But it doesn't have the, let's say, the connotations of the Islamic regions with Al-Qaeda and all those other types of things going on. It's not a fundamentally Muslim country at all. You know, it's more or less a Disneyland for businessmen. That's what you create, and then you can start earning from that. You earn in terms of the flights that are taken there. That earns you money. And of course you sell the oil to the airlines. That earns you money. And then the people there spend lots of cash, of course. That earns you money, and they spend it on prostitutes that you get with loads from India and all over the place. And that makes money. And then you start building condos and apartments there, and you're gonna make it very luxurious. And all those people are busy, and it's a speculative bubble. Basically, also with the support of the banking system, you let that happen. You know, if a bank looked at Dubai in any objective way, then it's a peninsula. It has land winds into the sea that take away like sandstorms. It's misty. It's foggy. There's nothing there. There's no oil. There's no, I think, big sweet water sources, because otherwise the area would be more green, and it isn't. So it's just a building site that was relatively cheap, and they tricked the Arabs there to go along with it. And of course they made a beautiful place there, and really, if you get some water there, which is really possible because you have lots of desert where you can have solar installations, although the sandy wind is a problem because it makes the mirrors less efficient. But if you could find a way to create a good source of water there, and you could green it, then it's actually a pretty nice place to live. But now it's crashing, and of course it's crashing because it's all artificial. There's nothing there. It's a false trophy once again to have an apartment in Dubai. You know, nobody ever bought those apartments, and they were not built to be lived in. They were only built to be speculated with. And that story has to end at some time, and it's better that it ends sooner than later, because it also meant huge churning of oil, which is bad for the climate. The whole financial crisis, which is not finished, because there is apparently there is more than 1,000 trillion, and I forgot about the word that denotes 1,000 trillion, but at least $512 trillion over-the-counter derivatives that are being slushed around in the financial system. And if you know that the GDP of the world is about 62 trillion, then you know that that everybody would have to work 10 years and then give everything that they earned to the banking system in order to pay that off, and that's not going to happen. So one day that shit will hit the financial fan, and that will be the end of it. And we don't know how much derivatives and credit default swaps and all that kind of stuff a Dubai crash will trigger. Apparently there's nobody that wants to prop up Dubai anymore. Abu Dhabi did it by the beginning of this year or the end of last year. They propped up Dubai a little bit, and that was when you had the exodus with people that left the cars at the airport and just went away. You know, if you don't have any money in Dubai, if there's nothing, no money to go around, how are you going to chase down the people that have run away without paying back their loans? You know, I think that's a big, that can be a big chaos, and maybe it's the same type of chaos as you see in the US with the real estate bubble, where there's not much, there's not really a good way of keeping track of all the all the ownership papers and stuff like that. That might be fun. There's another aspect to it. I think, of course, if Dubai really crashes and there's really no reason to be there, because there's also not really a reason to have a hub between the US and Asia. There might be a reason to have a hub between Europe and Asia, but short term US is a little bit out of the game and not going to get much credit. Then it might actually be a good safe haven for those bankers that want to flee from prosecution in the West. It won't work because, of course, they can be found there. But it's a place that's hard to reach. You have to fly there, and if it were up to me, then the financial system and everybody that worked there for some time and was personally responsible for fraudulent actions, that should be redefined, because the law kind of has been changing all along with the demands of the banking system. So a lot of things that you would consider fraudulent if I did it to you, you cannot consider fraudulent if a banker does it to you, because he has the law on his side, because he changed it. But so if you look at that with fresh eyes and reasonability, then there should be punishment for these people, and I think a good one would be to have a minimum wage for them for a number of years. Because after all, lots of Americans are resigned to scraping by at the moment, and they are millions. So why would a banker that basically caused that situation to happen for these people, because there is no reason why US would not be wealthy if it had managed their resources and the policies different, they would have been. Why would a banker be any different? Why would he be protected from that in any way? He has no vulnerability or whatsoever. He's just a guy, he's just an administrator, or she, with a large mouth usually. Some say they're usually brain damaged. That makes them more aggressive usually, and there's no reason to protect them in any way from a fate that he or she would share with millions and millions of Americans or people around the world. There's a new bubble emerging, which is the agricultural bubble in Africa, which is not very nice, because that will mean that also in Africa, in Congo and those places, lots of rainforest will be cut down in order to make room for soya growing, which is basically also in the south of America is devastating the meat industry. Land that was used to grow let's say cattle in the wild is now converted to soya growing fields, and the soya is probably fed to cattle in intensive farming operations in the US and elsewhere. So it's really about waking up to the types of moves that countries stealthily make in order to basically kill each other's population or deplete it of the resources. It's much more serious than you might think, and it's much more dangerous. And I'm not really that worried about the current financial crisis, because people remain where they are, and there's a real economy that is separate from the financial economy. And once the real economy has a new means of exchange, a new type of coin, or a new type of precious metally based means of exchange, it will just go on, and it might go on at a much lower pace, at a much lower rate than it used to. But that's fine, because that's exactly what you want. That's the pace that is organic within economies, and not propped up by bankers in order to reap the profits of the artificial competition that they create. Anyway, thanks for listening, and I hope you like this video.